Russia could be gaining an upper hand in what is a fierce battle for Bakhmut. British intelligence says that Moscow is regaining some momentum and has likely advanced as far as the town centre there. Well, in a report out today, the UK also said that fighters from both the Russian military and that private Wagner group have paused their ongoing feud and are now cooperating better. Well, elsewhere in Ukraine, at least 7 people were injured by shelling in the Kherson region. That's according to the military administration there. I want to get you to Nick Paton-Walsh, who is in Kyiv, with more on all of these developments. And let's start, if we can, with what we understand to be happening in Bakhmut at the moment. I mean, this has been a months-long battle, now sort of described as sort of an epicenter of this war. Just provided some context, if you will, and any detail that we have.
Look, I mean, the slim information in this UK intelligence report suggests in their assessment, and these are people who are continually analysing everything they can lay their hands on a NATO level, they believe that Russia is seeing incremental progress, some sense of momentum. But you have to remember, Becky, in the broader picture of all of this was a task that way back at the beginning of the winter, Russia thought it might be able to achieve in a matter of weeks. And it is still now, you might argue, 6-8 months even, continuing this inch-by-inch bid to get more of Bakhmut in its hands. Now, we've seen images today suggesting that in the Bakhmut market there was continued fighting with Ukrainian troops. That's pretty much central, and at the same time too there are indications a lot of fighting's around the train station too. So Ukraine still with forces in the west. Does appear the Russians have crossed over the river and appear to have done what they can to suggest a stronger presence inside of that city, but it comes at a staggering cost, and of course that is draining resources of Russia which are already significantly depleted. So add to that too another problem for Moscow, in that while they've been pretty much throwing everything they can at trying to take Bakhmut, that has allowed Ukraine, possibly elsewhere in the country, a chance to reset or get ready for any counter-offensive coming as well. Bakhmut is of limited strategic value, most assess. It will enable them, certainly Russia, if they take all of it, to have a better advantage for other parts of Donbass they want to take as well. But they've exhausted so many thousands, it seems, of troops in this particular fight, and it's dragged on so long that I think any eventual final outcome of this battle, which Ukraine is very keen to not let go of, will come at a substantial cost for Moscow. Becky?
Nick, the Pentagon investigating what appears to be screenshots of classified US and NATO military information about Ukraine, which is circulating on social media. I know that we've had that confirmed, at least by a Pentagon official. Do we have any more on this?
Now, I have to be level with you, Becky. This whole story is extremely odd. The Pentagon have not publicly said that these are authentic documents, and there's certainly a lot of people wondering why on earth, if this was, as one narrative suggests, confidential information obtained by Russia, why would they tweak it, as appears to have been the case, and then post it up on various social media channels? It would completely belie the point of having that confidential advantage of knowing what your enemy's assessment of your capabilities or Ukraine's capabilities indeed are. So that's also odd too. We've heard from Ukrainian officials who are saying this is all part of standard Russian misinformation operation, and Moscow haven't directly commented on this at all. So it's an odd piece of information to see out there. There are suggestions perhaps some of this information may have been doctored or may be old, but it really isn't clear where it originated from. But it adds to one thing, and that's the general sense of anticipation here, certainly, about when this counter-offensive may begin. We've had so much misinformation over the past months, particularly when it came to the previous Ukrainian counter-offensive back in the summer, suggesting where or that they may or may not choose to begin that fight. That I think we should look at these documents, whatever they really are, in that particular perspective, and it remains to be seen quite what they genuinely are, but it does add to that broad sense that something is certainly coming, and it's Ukraine's turn on the battlefield to make a move forwards. Becky?
Yeah, unclear when and what, if anything, either side knows about the other's preparations for it, given your account there of it being very unclear what it is that is circulating at this point. Nick, it's good to have you there. Nick Paton-Walsh is in Ukraine for you folks. Well, in northeastern Ukraine, things are relatively calm in the Kharkiv region near the Russian border. Still, Ukrainian forces preparing for battle there. CNN's Ben Wiedemann found time to speak to some of the soldiers as they shore up their defences. Have a look at this.
Zhenya prepares his .50 caliber machine gun. He didn't fire this time, but he needs to be always on alert. Russian forces are nearby. This position on the northern edge of the Kharkiv region hasn't seen much action of late, but the men here have seen plenty elsewhere. In January, Zhenya was in a frontline foxhole in Donbass. From early in the morning, they would shell us with artillery, and right afterwards, their infantry would try to take our positions, he recalls. You could see them. Much of the area south of here saw vicious combat. Last September, Ukrainian forces routed the Russians for much of the Kharkiv region. Before retreating, they toppled this Soviet-era communications tower. Scorched earth, their tactic of choice. This position, manned by the 209th Battalion of the Ukrainian Army's 113th Brigade, is holding steady. Defense, not offense, is the order of the day. Oleksiy was a nuclear physicist before picking up a gun.
We have enough ammunition, we have enough weapon and different armor equipment, but it's all for defense. Weapons for the counterattack, it will be better because we sooner free our land.
The weapons they have are hardly the latest. The troops showed us a Swedish-made recoilless rocket launcher dating back to 1978. They defend their position with other decades-old methods. Beyond this razor wire, just on the other side, are landmines. Fortunately, this area is relatively quiet, which is a welcome respite for these battle-scarred troops. It was a nightmare, is how Yevgan describes the battle in the dead of winter in Donbass. I'll remember it for the rest of my life. 52-year-old Vitaly served with Russians in the Soviet army. This war has severed old ties. We ate from the same pot, he says, reminiscing of his days as a young recruit. That was then, this is now. After so many battles, they prepare for the next. Ben Wiedemann, CNN, in the northern Kharkiv region.
Well, the French President Emmanuel Macron is now wrapping up what has been a three-day visit to China. He was greeted by huge crowds at Sun Yat-sen University on Friday, where he spoke to students on the campus. Later, Mr. Macron had a private dinner with President Xi Jinping before meeting with Chinese investors. On Thursday, the two leaders struck a deal on nuclear and wind energy. They also discussed solutions to end the war in Ukraine. Mr. Macron hoping for a breakthrough and counting on President Xi to reason with Russia.
The Russian aggression in Ukraine has dealt a blow to this stability. It ended decades of peace in Europe. I know I can count on you, moreover under the two principles I have just mentioned, to bring Russia to its senses and everyone to the negotiating table. And we will come back to this in detail, but we need to find a lasting peace.
Well, CNN's Mark Stewart has been following President Macron's historic visit to China. He joins us from Tokyo, and I just wonder what you believe have been the wins for both sides here. Let's start off with President Macron. I mean, he received an unusually warm and lavish welcome from President Xi. What did he get out of this trip?
Well, Becky, I think if we look back at this visit, we really need to divide it into two categories. There's diplomacy, and then there is deal-making. Let's first talk about diplomacy, because all attention has been focused on China's influence in Russia and the war in Ukraine. We just got some remarks reported by Chinese state media within the last few hours in which President Xi is quoted as saying the war should not drag on and that there should be a ceasefire. But as we have witnessed during this visit, both sides, meaning France and China, really have not wavered from their positions. France really blaming Russia for this war, and China not necessarily condemning Russia for its involvement in this war. So things in many ways are still status quo despite these remarks. No one really is making any kind of wholesale shift in position. However, according to French diplomatic sources, President Xi has agreed to take a call with Vladimir Zelensky when the time is right, at the right moment is the wording that we have been reporting.